Site preparation. Recommendations for bench space. For the CM5700B and a Kilometer, we would recommend a bench of 78 inches or 2 meters wide with 33 inches or 0.84 meters height clearance and 21 inches or 0.54 meters deep. The bench should be able to hold 100 pounds or 45.4 kilograms with a total weight for both units. Power requirements of the CM5700B. The CM5700B is supplied as either a 120 volt 50-60 Hz model or a 220 volt 50-60 Hz model. Both are rated at 2 amps of current. The 120 volt model requires one outlet that can take a NAMA 5 to 15 plug. The 220 volt model requires one outlet that can take a CEE7 style plug. Instrument familiarization. There are many supplies necessary for the operation of our CM5700B. CM101 348 water bottle. CM101 347 acid bottle. CM101 354 protective case assembly. CM164 007 power conditioner at 220 volts. Or CM164 010 power conditioner for 120 volt instruments. CM200 078 20 ml flasks. CM333 021 screw caps. CM192 024 silicone septa. CM101 346 CM5700B door. CM161 051 European power cord. Or 161 027 North American power cord for 120 volt instruments. CM210 022 CO2 pre-scrubber 2. CM190 001 small union package. CM192 003 check valve package. CM161 144 serial cable. CM5700B operation manual. CM210 021 condenser. CM192 009 joint connector. CM129 109 coupled with barb. CM190 009 Teflon tubing 120 inches. CM210 012 post scrubber assembly. CM101 340 CM5700B base unit. CM101 353 small flask carousel assembly. UIC also offers a large flask carousel assembly. Identifying the parts on the CM5700B. On the front of the instrument, on the left side, we see the pre-scrubber box. Within this area, we have 3 check valves and 4 3-way solenoid valves. There are 2 pumps, one for acid and one for water, and the flow meter to adjust the carrier gas flow. The pre-scrubber mounting location, as well as the post-scrubbing mounting location. On the right, we have the electronic box area and the PID temperature control for units with optional heating. The display in the keyboard with the up, down, and enter keys. Finally, we have the main power switch for the instrument. On the left side of the instrument, on the upper portion, we have the carrier gas supply connections. This consists of the carrier gas in connection and the outgas or the 2 kilometer connection. Additionally, we have the acid and water supply line, and mounting racks for both the acid and water bottles. On the back of the instrument, you can locate the serial number of the unit with the electric ratings, the power cord connection, fuse specification tags, serial port for coulometer connection, and the cooling fan for the electronic box and scrubber box. CM5700B setup. Connecting power supply and communication. Ensure all switches are off. Connect the power cord to the power conditioner and the other end to the CM5700B. Connect the mains power cord to the main power outlet and the other end to the power input of the power conditioner as shown. Connect the serial cable to the back of the CM5700B. Condenser installation. Attach the condenser to the arm bracket by sliding the joint connector around the stainless steel mounting collar. Place the condenser in the plastic clip and lower it down so the end of the condenser goes through the hole in the top of the joint connector and into the mounting collar. With the barb closed fittings pointed towards the rear of the instrument, pull the condenser assembly and lift slightly on the threaded joint connector. Turn counterclockwise to tighten. Do not over-tighten or provide lateral pressure to the condenser while holding it. These actions could cause the bottom of the condenser to break. Using a small union, connect the Teflon tubing line coming out of the iron bracket to the top of the condenser. The result should resemble this setup. CM5700B Autosampler is delivered with the needles already attached. To change the needles, if they become plugged, bent, or corroded, carefully unscrew the needle from the fitting and screw in a new one. The short needle is bent, and the bend should be facing towards the long needle when both needles are tight. Carrier gas line connections. Prepare carrier gas inlet line using CM190-0009 tubing and the CM129-109 fitting as shown. The gas used for the instrument is ultra-high purity nitrogen regulated by a 2-stage regulator and restricted down to 8 to 10 psi. Prepare the 2 kilometer line by taking the appropriate length of CM190-0009 tubing and properly assembling it with a CM129-109 connector. Place the assembly line into the 2 kilometer fitting. Prepare the other end of the line by taking 2 CM190-001 unions and 1 CM192-003 check valve. Assemble the union on the check valve and attach it as illustrated in the provided procedure. Note that the carrier gas must be able to flow towards the end of the check valve going to the kilometer. The direction of flow is indicated by the shape of the check valve and a small arrow on the check valve. The arrow should be pointing to the tubing going towards the kilometer. It is essential that the check valve is in the proper orientation so flow can occur. Pre- and post-scrubber connections. Carefully unpack the CO2 pre-scrubber CM5700B. Use the small adjustable wrench to remove plug fittings from both ends of the CO2 pre-scrubber. Remove plugs and use the provided fittings and furrows to install the pre-scrubber. Fittings and frills should be placed on the tubing coming from the bottom and the tubing coming from the SV1 three-way valve. The fittings and furrows should fit well before the pre-scrubber is placed in. Be sure not to over-tighten. Prepare the post-scrubber solution as directed in the manual and fill the post-scrubber with 10 to 20 ml of solution. Assemble the post-scrubber by sliding the joint connector on the top of the post-scrubber body. Slide the top of the post-scrubber through the joint connector and into the post-scrubber body. Turn the threaded joint connector counterclockwise to tighten. Mount the post-scrubber in the clip. Connect the top of the post-scrubber to the tubing coming out of the scrubber box with a reducing union. Connect the post-scrubber inlet sidearm to the tubing coming from the SV three-way with a reducing union. The results should resemble this setup. Acid and DI water bottles. Prepare acid solution as directed in Section 5 of the Operation Manual. Fill the bottle marked acid and place it in the left bottle holder. Feed the appropriate tubing for acid through the top and adjust the tubing length so it reaches the bottom of the bottle. Fill the second bottle marked DI water with distilled or deionized water and place it in the right bottle holder. Feed the appropriate tubing for water through the top and adjust the tubing length so it reaches the bottom of the bottle. Note that acid and water bottles are not interchangeable. Be sure the tubes are in the correct bottles. Installing the door on the CM5700B. Installation will be done using the Phillips head screwdriver. Insert the door hinge into the mount on the unit and tighten. Install the CM5700B 354 protective case assembly using the Phillips head screwdriver. The safety shield for the needle can be swung up to reveal the needles. Sample analysis. Initialization. Set the nitrogen pressure to 8 to 10 psi. Turn on CM5700B power. The CM5700B is shipped with the arm down. Once on, the arm will lift to the up position and zero the carousel to the 0 position. Set the flow to 100 to 150 mils per minute. If the unit has optional heating, set the PID. Parameter settings on the CM5700B. The display on the 5700B is a 4-line character display, and there are 4 keys with an up arrow, a down arrow, a back, and an enter key. To access items on the unit, you can use the arrows to move the cursor up and down to the desired parameter and press enter. In this case, we are going to set the parameter option. Here, you can find local parameter settings for the 5700B. You can set the acid volume, set the purge time, and set the preheat time. To set the acid volume, move the cursor down to the Set Acid Volume line and press enter. The unit has selectable acid volumes of 5 and 10 mils. The large volume model can go up to 20 mils, but this option is disabled on this model. Set the acid volume to 10 mils if this option is not already selected. Press enter. It will indicate which acid volume is selected on the display. The other parameters are the purge time and the preheat time. If desired, these can be set by moving the cursor down to, for example, the purge time and pressing enter. Purge time is adjustable in 1/2 minute increments, starting from 0 up to 10 minutes. It is typical with an autosampler not to use any purge time and to have the unit set to 0 minutes. However, if a purge time is desired, the up arrow can be pressed to add 1/2 minute increments. Press enter to accept the final value. For this demonstration, we'll revert the purge time to 0 because a purge time isn't typically used with an autosampler. Set the purge back and press enter, then back to exit. The preheat time is similar to the purge time, but is only applicable to units with heating options, which is not shown in this video. Refer to the manual for further instructions. Press the back key to return to the main menu. The instrument has a series of local diagnostics that can be run. One of them is the leak check procedure. Sample analysis pre-check. Perform the leak check procedure. Using the keypad arrow, move down to the Run Diagnostics line. Press Enter. Within the Diagnostics menu, select Load Carousel Line. Press Enter. This will initiate the Load Carousel routine, which moves the carousel counterclockwise to allow the loading of positions 1 through 3. When the carousel stops, we will place an empty vessel, a septum and a lid, into position 1. Press back on the menu to return the carousel to the 0 position. Once the carousel returns to the 0 position, the menu will turn to the Diagnostics menu. Next, we'll want to perform a leak check. Press Enter to initiate the procedure. The Autosampler will move the bottle to the analysis position. It will begin the lift down and needle down position to insert the needle into the septum of the bottle. The appropriate valve will then turn on to begin the leak check. Failed leak check walkthrough. In the leak check procedure, carrier gas should be flowing through the system and through the pro scrubber and up. Since there is no carrier gas flow, this indicates that there is a leak. The first thing we should do is tighten all of our connections, starting with the condenser. As you can see, tightening the condenser in this case resolved the issue and the carrier gas is now flowing through the system. We will now continue with the leak check. To proceed with the leak check, we will take the check valve assembly that we have installed on the line and we will block off flow by clamping it. Another way to stop flow would be to reverse the check valve. The goal here is to seal the system and prevent carrier gas from traveling. This will result in the bubbles stopping and the flow meter reaching 0. You can see here that the flow meter has reached 0 and the bubbles have stopped. This indicates there are no leaks in the system and concludes our leak check. To complete the leak check procedure, very slowly open the pinch clamp and let the flow return to the normal 100 to 150 ml amount. Now, press the Enter key to have the instrument end the leak check procedure. Run the necessary cleanup and return to the main menu. Place sample flasks in the carousel. Upon completing the leak check, select the Load Carousel menu option to remove the empty flask used in the leak check. We are now ready to place our samples in the carousel for analysis. Here, we loaded 3 flasks of samples. After loading samples, press back on the display menu to exit the Load Carousel menu. You may now load the remaining samples. To prepare the system to work with a kilometer, press the backspace to access the main menu. Select Ready for Analysis on the display menu. Once selected, the menu will read Waiting for Command and is now ready to connect to the kilometer. Cable connection to kilometer. The communications cable to kilometer must be connected to the proper port. Here, we will be connecting the CM5700 model. The cable should be placed in the bottom port marked serial, not in the top marked network. Setup kilometer. Setting CM5700 kilometer for the use for the CM5700B. Details on kilometer setup can be found in the manual. We have connected the gas line from the CM5700B Autosampler to the CM5700 kilometer through properly connected check valves. We are now ready to begin the system setup for the CM5700. Select System Parameters and select Change Settings. Select Carbon for the analysis type. Select the calculations based on weight. We will select milligrams for the unit of weight. Percent difference criteria can remain as default. Press Next to continue. Factor can also remain as the default. Press Enter to continue. Enter the number of readings. Press Next to continue. Interval can also remain as the default. Select Auto Endpoint for timing method and select Autosampler for sampling method. The Autosampler type should be CM5700. Our new Autosampler no longer uses the following parameters displayed on the screen, so we may skip these by pressing Next. Select Standard for the printout format. Sample entry may be done manually or may be loaded from a USB drive. We will enter the samples manually. You may change the instrument ID and analyst ID if you so choose. Press F4 on the keyboard to continue. A summary of your settings can be accessed by selecting Print Settings. This will also physically print out if an optional printer was attached. Press F4 on the keyboard to continue. Press back to exit out of System Parameters menu. We will now select Run Cell Setup. This will begin the cell titration step. We will need to titrate our cell down according to the method outlined in the CM5700B manual. Now we will press Start Analysis to initiate a communication test between the CM5700B and the CM5700. A successful test will result in the communication test menu disappearing. If an error message occurs, this is an indication that the communication cables are not tight enough. Recheck and attempt to reconnect once more. A Test Passed message on the CM5700B indicates a successful connection, and the screen of the kilometer will switch to the Cell Activity screen. Switch the cell power to the on position to titrate the cell down. This will take approximately 45 minutes, and details can be found in the manual. Once the cell is properly titrated, select Next and enter the number of samples, including your blanks. In this demonstration, we are running 3 samples, 2 blanks and 1 analytical sample. Enter the sample information. Once the information has been entered, you are ready to begin analysis. The message "Waiting for signal from Autosampler" will appear, and the carousel will begin to rotate to move the bottle to position 1 and lower the needle down. The CM5700B will signal back to the Kilometer to start the analysis, and then the CM5700B will turn on the acid pump to start the acidification of the sample. After reading, the system will perform a routine cleanup before moving on to the next sample. The Autosampler will continue with readings until all samples are read by detecting if a bottle is present. The Autosampler will continue to communicate with the Kilometer to read samples. Once analysis is complete, select Done on the Kilometer to zero out the carousel. CM5700B Shutdown. Follow the procedure for shutdown of the Kilometer. For the Autosampler, turn off the gas flow to 0 and turn the instrument off.